that the end of the movie?
That's near the end of the movie. I don't know. I don't want to really watch that movie anymore. I was there. You know?
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
When that movie comes on this time of year, I mean, this is the hottest time to be Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
Hello.
Behind that famous Home Alone scream was a child trapped in hell at just 10 years old. Macaulay Culkin was worth $50 million, but he didn't even know it. His father made sure of that. Today, the horrifying truth emerges. The threats, the abuse, and the twisted reason Kit cult turned his own son into a prisoner of fame. This isn't just another child star story. It's a father's betrayal that will leave you speechless. Macaulay Culkin was born on August 26, 1980, in Manhattan, New York. His family was big, his home was small, and money was always tight. He grew up with 6 siblings in a tiny apartment in Yorkville, a space so cramped that they all had to share bunk beds in one room. There were no doors, just a narrow hallway that served as their home. Privacy didn't exist, but the chaos brought them close. His father, Kit Culkin, had been a stage actor before taking a job at a local church. His mother, Patricia Bren, worked as a telephone operator for a casting agency. That connection to the entertainment world would change everything for Macaulay. Life was tough. Macaulay later shared how he used to crawl under theater seats, looking for lost change, a small but telling sign of how much his family struggled. But in that crowded apartment, something else was happening. His father had once dreamed of making it as an actor, and now he saw a chance for his kids. Kit pushed them into show business, believing one of them could succeed. Mao stood out early before he turned 5. He was already performing in off-Broadway productions like Bach Babies and The Nutcracker with the New York City Ballet. His mother's job helped too. She had connections at casting agencies, and one director, Billy Hopkins, even paid for Macaulay's Ides to auditions by 8. He had landed small roles in Rocket Jolter and See in the Morning, but everything changed in 1989. When he starred in Uncle Buck with John Candy, his performance stole the show. His expressions, timing, and charm made him impossible to ignore. He wasn't just another child actor. He was something special. Macaulay Culkin's life changed forever when he became Kevin Mallister. In Home Alone, he was just another kid auditioning for a movie. He was the most famous child actor in the world. The film, directed by Chris Columbus and written by John Hughes, told the story of a boy left behind during Christmas who had to outsmart 2 burglars. It was funny, clever, and had just the right amount of heart. But none of it would have worked without the perfect. Kevin Culkin was the first kid Columbus saw for the role, but the director wasn't sure. He kept looking and auditioned over 200 other children. None of them had the same natural charm. When Culkin came back for a second audition, he had memorized 2 entire scenes from the script. He didn't just say the lines, he became Kevin. That was it. The search was over when Home Alone hit theaters. In 1990, it became an instant sensation. Audiences couldn't get enough of Kevin's wild tricks and hilarious traps. The film made over $285 million in the U.S. alone, breaking records and turning Culkin into a global superstar. His face was everywhere on posters, magazines, and even lunchboxes. Kevin's scream, his love for cheese, pizza, and his fearless attitude became pop culture. Culkin's performance was a big part of why the movie worked so well. He made Kevin more than just a mischievous kid. He made him funny, brave, and completely relatable. Critics and audiences loved him. Hollywood noticed too suddenly. Every major studio wanted him in their next big movie. 2 years later, Home Alone 2: Lost in New York hit theaters. This time, Kevin got separated from his family again, but now he had all of New York City as his playground. The film kept everything that made the first one great and added even bigger stunts and funnier moments. It didn't make as much money as the original, but it was still a massive hit, earning over $173 million. In the U.S. alone for Cullen, the sequel was more than just another blockbuster. It was a financial breakthrough. His salary for the first Home Alone was big for a child actor, but for the second, he earned a jaw-dropping $4.5 million. By the time he starred in Richie Rich in 1994, he was making $15 million per film. At just 14 years old, he was one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood, but fame came with pressure. His father hit. Cullen managed his career and pushed for bigger paychecks, but behind the scenes, things weren't easy. By the mid-90s, Macaulay took a step back from acting. He had made enough money to last a lifetime, and the spotlight had started to feel overwhelming, even after he left Hollywood. Home Alone never faded every December. Families around the world watched Kevin defend his house and outsmart the burglars. The film became a holiday tradition. Kids who grew up watching it showed it to their own children. It wasn't just a movie, it was a part of people's childhoods. Decades later, Home Alone is still one of the most beloved films of all time. The slapstick comedy, the clever traps, and the heartwarming story all played a part in its success. But at the center of it all was Macaulay Culkin. He didn't just play Kevin McAllister, he was Kevin McAllister. And no matter how many years pass, that little boy with the big grin will always remind audiences of the magic of Christmas. Macaulay Culkin was everywhere in the early 90s, but as he grew older, everything started to change. He wanted to prove he wasn't just the mischievous kid from Home Alone. He wanted something more. In 1991, he took on a role that was completely different from anything he had done before. My Girl wasn't a slapstick comedy or an adventure film. It was emotional. It was tragic. Culkin played Thomas J., a sweet and fragile boy, allergic to almost everything. His performance was heartfelt, and the film was a success, earning over $17 million in the U.S. But it wasn't just another hit. It was a turning point. For the first time, audiences saw him as more than just a funny kid. Then came The Good Son in 1993, a movie that stunned everyone. Instead of playing a lovable troublemaker, he became Henry Evans, a boy with no conscience and no remorse. This wasn't the Macaulay Culkin people knew. This was something darker, something disturbing. His cold stare, his unsettling calmness. It was a performance that made people uncomfortable. Critics had mixed opinions on the film, but no one could deny that Culkin had range. He wasn't afraid to take risks. His father, Kit Culkin, had pushed for this role, even threatening to pull him from Home Alone 2. Lost in New York unless he got the part. It was a bold move, and it worked. By 1994, Culkin was still landing major roles, but the excitement around him was fading. He starred in Richie Rich, playing a billionaire kid with a heart of gold. The movie had everything: a fun premise, a well-known character, and Culkin's signature charm. But something was missing. The magic wasn't there. The reviews were lukewarm. And while the movie did fine at the box office, it didn't capture the same energy as his earlier hits. It was clear that audiences were starting to move. The mid-90s were a strange time for family films. People still loved them. They wanted more depth, more complexity. Culkin was in a tough spot. He was still young, but he wasn't the same wide-eyed kid from Home Alone. He was growing up, and Hollywood didn't know what to do with him. Movies like Getting Even with Dad and The Pagemaster struggled to make an impact. They weren't complete failures, but they weren't the smash hits. Everyone expected. Suddenly, the biggest child star in the world wasn't so untouchable anymore. Then, at just 14 years old, he did something no one saw coming. He walked away. He was one of the highest-paid child actors ever, making $8 million per film. But he wanted out. He had been working since he was 4 years old. He had never known a life outside of movies. He wanted to go to school, make friends, and just be a normal teenager, Macaulay Culkin and me. Lou and Yun started dating in May 2002. At the time, both were young stars figuring out their lives in Hollywood. Culkin was still known as the Home Alone Kid, and Kunis was gaining fame from That 770s show. Even with the media watching, they kept their relationship mostly private. In a 2007 interview, Kunis said their life together was simple. They spent time reading, playing video games, and watching movies. She also said Culkin was an amazing cook who made dinner every night. But as the years passed, things got complicated. By 2006, Culkin was living in New York, while Kunis was based in Los Angeles. The long distance started to wear on them. In early 2011, they decided to go their separate ways. At the time, Kunis's publicist said the breakup was amicable, and that they stayed friends in 2018. Kunis admitted it wasn't as smooth as people thought on a podcast. She said she handled the breakup badly and called her behavior in her 20s terrible. She regretted how things ended, looking back. The breakup gave them both the chance to move forward. Kunis married Ashton Kutcher in 2015, and Culkin found love again with actress Brenda Song. Even though their relationship ended, it was a big part of their lives and shaped the people they became. Years later, Culkin met Song at a gathering hosted by Seth Green in 2014. They didn't start dating right away. But in 2017, they worked together on Green's film Changeland. After filming, they grew closer, and by October, they were seen together in public. They held hands at Knott's Scary Farm and attended events side by side. Unlike many Hollywood couples, they didn't share much about their relationship, choosing to keep things private. In April 2021, they welcomed their first child, a son named Dakota. They named him after Culkin's sister, who passed away in 2008. In December 2022, they had their second son, Carson, instead of hiring a nanny. They relied on Song's parents for help. Culkin stayed home most of the time, calling himself a homebody dad, while Song balanced work and motherhood. At some point, before 2023, they got engaged but never rushed to get married. They joked about eloping, but decided to wait so they could include Song's family in a